Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and their professional teams struggle to find great capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way to exit your highly appreciated assets tax deferred so you can create and preserve your wealth. I'm your co-host, Pearson York, filling in for Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best wealth, business, real estate, and leadership individuals in the world to share ideas, deal stories, and inspirations so together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. We're also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets, Capital Gains Tax Solutions YouTube channel, Kingdom Luxury Realty YouTube channel, and the Kingdom Luxury Realty Facebook channel. And I'm very excited about our next guest. She has over 17 years and in the financial strategy world. She has coined this new idea of a much more holistic team building approach to financial planning, financial advising, and actually developed financial strategizing. And so this is new age. This is up and coming. The old way is dead. And I'm very, very, very excited for you guys to meet Eunicia Peret. Excuse me. Eunicia Peret. Eunicia, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Pierce?
I'm doing super well. Sorry about that. I kind of got a little something caught in the throat there, but I'm very excited to see you. How are you?
Likewise, I'm doing great, and I absolutely love what you said earlier, out with the old and in with the new, because God knows we need some of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm really excited to dig a little bit deeper into that. But first, I want to take you back a little bit and kind of ask about your story. How did you get to where you are today?
That's a great question. I got to where I am today by a lot of really experiencing a lot of trial and error, working with financial teams and financial so-called experts that were more about the bottom line than they were about me understanding and really having access to all of the different options that I could and should have had access to. And so, after years and years of working with some of the world's most renowned brand names, their CFOs and their CEOs, and figuring out their financial problems, my husband and I realized that we had a problem internally in our household, right, from a financial standpoint, in terms of how do we truly optimize our long-term wealth creation efforts. And it was at that point in time where we asked a lot of questions. Because of my area of expertise, I do ask a lot of questions because I'm a strong believer that asking questions can lead us to the right answers and to the right path. And in doing so, what I found was that the answers were very limited. And there were a lot of answers that, frankly, I was not getting, or I was getting inconsistent answers. And so when I started really diving in, first and foremost, to understand what was happening with our situation and why we weren't as optimized as we could have been, I came to discover that overall, most individuals, especially high net worth and high earning individuals, have a lot of blind spots that unfortunately we don't really know about. People don't, it's not the kind of stuff that is being discussed openly out there every single day. And because of that, we end up leaving too much money on the table. So everything is history at this point in time, but that's kind of how it all started, how this whole concept of we need to do things differently if we are to keep more of our hard-earned money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you said a lot of things there that I am really excited to unpack. But first, before I do, I want to just take one more step back and I believe everyone's been given a superset of strengths or superpowers or spiritual gifts. What are one or two strengths or gifts that you think that you have that have led you to where you are today?
I think one of the strongest is the power of the intuition, the power of following my intuition. It's been, some people will call strengths, some of those strengths, a blessing and a curse. And oftentimes, especially when you're dealing with foreseeing something negative coming up, as human beings, we want to kind of deflect from that. But what I found over the years, and especially earlier on in my youth, was that when I didn't listen to my intuition, things ended up turning the way that perhaps they shouldn't have, or the way that my intuition was telling me they were going to turn up. And when I did listen to my intuition, it was so powerful. Not only did the results end up being so much better, but just having that peace that things were okay because I knew intrinsically that they were okay was huge.
Awesome. Awesome. So you have really learned to just follow your gut feelings.
Follow my gut, and I also have this. My husband will tell you that I have spidey senses. He
Spidey
used to tell me.
senses.
He said something along the lines of, he said, you're unique. What you've got is something that most people don't. I think it kind of goes along hand in hand with the intuition, but I'm able to read individuals, and because of that, we'll talk more about kind of our strategy and how we see things differently. But one of the big things is we need to be able to trust people, and I
Absolutely.
think those spidey senses have come in very, very handy in terms of really being able to decipher, and are our clients being told the right thing? Are they being told the truth, or are the people and influencing what it is that we do, perhaps hiding behind some other ulterior motives or agendas? And that's been something that again has not only saved me but has given me huge opportunity, simply because I was in a situation and I am in situations where if the relationships don't work, if that trust isn't there from the onset, then again, I go back to listening to what is my gut instinct and my spidey senses telling me about that person and about that relationship, because otherwise we can run into some big time trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. A discerning heart is creates one of the wisest men to ever live. So there's a lot of wisdom in a discerning heart. So that's an awesome superpower or gift to have for sure. So you mentioned a couple of things there. Your approach is different. Tell me about that.
Well, we live in an era where, frankly, financial planning, I don't see it being the way that it used to be, right? So historically, individuals would go to a financial planner. They would be asked, how much money do you have to invest? And that money would somehow get invested. So a lot of individuals were used to the fact that somebody's just doing something and it's making their money grow. What we're finding is that with everything that's happening today, more than ever, we're dealing with legislative changes that are impacting the way that wealth is transferred, the way that taxes get paid or don't get paid. We're dealing with new tax regulations that are even different than the overall legislative changes. And then last but not least, we're also dealing with this rising inflation. And because of that, too many individuals have questions that frankly their financial advisors have not really addressed for them. And so our approach is different in that we're strong believers that it's not any one individual or perhaps even one single office that can deliver the true unified solution when it comes to the clients and how they build wealth. And so our approach is different because we want to make sure that our clients' financial team, holistic financial team, is sitting at the same table talking about the client's issues specifically and making sure that everybody's in lockstep so that nobody kind of ends up working against the other person or the other team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really important because I've noticed that in talking to some financial advisors, insurance people, estate planners, you have then, your real estate people, that there's a lot of like, and I was just having another conversation about this with a previous guest who's thinking along the same lines as you guys, and we were talking about this like idea that people want to keep the client in a specific lane that benefits them. Like the financial advisors want to keep the assets under management, right? The insurance people want to sell life insurance, right? The real estate people want them to do real estate transactions. Like, so, but it's not, there's not this holistic approach where everyone works together to solve what we like to call is the Rubiks Cube, right? So we're big on this team idea as well, right? When we go with the client, we're all like have our own little like niche or whatever, and we all like look at the Rubiks Cube. We do a little piece and we throw it to Eunicia, and then Eunicia does a little piece, right? And then Eunicia throws it to her guy, and he does a little piece, and then like we build this whole plan together at the end where all the colors line up, not just financial advising with assets under management, not just life insurance with whatever. And so I really love your approach that you're taking with this holistic team view, as opposed to just staying in one lane.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I would take what you said about the Rubik's Cube, and I love that. I might borrow it if you don't mind.
Yeah, take it. It's actually Brett's,
Um,
but I give you
what
full
we do
permission.
is in terms of that Rubik's Cube is we are kind of the conduit to make the Rubik's Cube even move. Oftentimes clients will come to us and will say, hey, but what if I want to stay with my current person? Okay, stay with your current person. What ends up happening is after they get exposure to our methodology and they get exposure to our strategic partners, what they're finding is that exactly what you said. Everybody's out to sell something. And when clients say, what are you selling? We're not selling anything. We really aren't. What we're selling is this idea that people should understand their options. And more importantly, especially for high net worth individuals, which are the individuals we're talking to here, whether they're selling a business or they're selling, high-end real estate, or they're selling, or they want to be in real estate, or they want to be in fractional investments, or maybe they want a portfolio and they want a mix. What does that look like? And how can we help them make sure that not only the pieces of the puzzle or the Rubik's Cube are coming together, but how do we make sure that instead of just passing the buck down, that we get everybody talking? Because, like, I'll give you an example. We have a client we're working among others with right now, and there are huge tax implications. We were able to, through one of our strategic partners, he was able to save hundreds of thousands of dollars last year in from a taxes perspective, because frankly his CPA did not understand that there were some very specific things that he could have done that he was entitled to by the tax code to do. But those are
Mhm.
things that most CPAs don't know about, especially when it comes to high net worth individuals. They're very few, and most CPAs and most tax professionals are addressing the needs of just the regular population, right? And so in doing that, we were able to do that. Well, now there are additional questions in terms of other strategies that he's taking on from a wealth creation standpoint. Business divestitures, selling it off, keeping it on, keeping on, the kinds of financial vehicles he currently has in place set up for the company. Should he not? A lot of cost analysis to figure out what truly makes sense. And if it hadn't been for us working together and bringing the whole team together, he would stand to lose tens of thousands of dollars with some of the financial entanglements that over the years, one person or another, one company or another might have sold him and put him in, to where now when he's looking, and I got a call from him not long ago. He said, Eunicia, we need to cut the defined benefit plan. I said, well, why? He said, because it's been costing me money. It's costing me time. It's not adding the value to the company or to the team as it was originally pitched to us. And frankly, it's just draining me. And so
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that we do, because otherwise, again, my motto is we shouldn't be leaving money on the table. And sadly, that we see that happening way too often.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you mentioned a couple things in there, the tax implications and whatnot. How has I mean, we've all heard, cash is king, right? All that cash flow and all that kind of stuff. How have you seen the dynamic shift from cash flow to now kind of protecting what's leaving? We like to call it tax flow, right?
Mhm.
Like, how do we preserve what we've created instead of just like create more and then it's just a leaky bucket where all of a sudden now it's leaking all the money out and all that kind of stuff? How do we plug those holes with some tax flow? And what are you seeing out there right now?
Well, one of the things that I'm seeing is that too many individuals don't think about, again, even from just a tax perspective, the options that they have, right? How do they want their money taxed? Do they want it taxed now, later, or never? And a lot of times when I say those words, people go, Can you rewind, right?
Yeah,
What do you mean?" Um, in my perspective, when we're thinking of taxes, it really boils down to two key concepts: is how do we pay taxes in the current year, right? Because
hmm,
everybody has to pay taxes. I'm a huge believer in paying taxes. You shouldn't pay more than you have to, but in order to do that, you need to make sure you work with individuals that understand the tax code,
of
and
course.
that's where our strategic partners come in, because that's what they do every day. So, how do we pay taxes in the current year, and then how do we pay taxes in the future? Sometimes those two concepts are united depending on the types of transactions that are taking place. Sometimes they're different. And so, my philosophy is that we need to understand at the core of every single client situation. It's not just the client, it's the client situation, that transaction that they're dealing with. That analysis has to go in so that the client has an understanding of, okay, here are my options. And if I do this, this is what's going to happen. If we do that, that's what's going to happen.
Right.
I'll give you a private perfect example here. Working with same kind of thing, a different client, and one of the big questions, based on some of the transactions that had taken place here between 2021 and 2022, he was in a situation where he was able to open a retirement account. It was a Roth retirement account,
Hmm.
and it would have given him obviously huge tax benefits in the future. And the way that everybody was looking at the situation, everybody said, go with the Roth, go with the Roth, go with the Roth. But then he was looking at making a real estate transaction, and that would have there would have needed to be some collaboration with a self-directed IRA, et cetera, et cetera. And as you know, there are very big divides that need to be kept, especially when you're dealing with a self-directed IRA. And so given what the client was trying to achieve, had it been any other team, they would have just pushed it, get it done, because at this point it's March, we've been in those discussions since December to figure out what the right thing is for the client. And so finally, when he came up with, okay, here's how I want to invest the money, and we were able to look at his investment strategy, guess what? It was no longer computing with the Roth IRA strategy.
Right.
Why? Because he would have literally needed to incur additional costs that were unnecessary in order to just maintain that structure. Number one. Number two, because of the time frame that he was looking at, the benefits of that Roth IRA were not going to give him, they were not sufficient enough for him to incur that additional cost in order to maintain the overall structure. And so obviously that's very complex. And even just what I said, a lot of people are going to be like, what is she talking about? But without looking at all of those different points and triangulating them back, whether we pay taxes now or we pay taxes later, or we have to figure out the both, can be a very big question, and it can either cost us money or free up money to put it back in our pockets
Yeah,
or the client's
definitely.
pockets.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are you seeing is the biggest like frustration with the tax deferral, 1031s, with just different transactions with some of these high net worth individuals?
Well, a lot of individuals will ask the question on the 1031s, right? Should they do a 1031s, or are there better options in order to minimize their taxes? And obviously, you guys already deal with some of those options. And the reality is, the frustration is that people have that limited time frame to find a property, especially if they're obviously on the real estate side, to find that property in a market that is overly hot, as most people will tell you, and they're feeling pinched. Funny enough, my husband's in real estate, and he's dealing with
Yeah.
some clients right now that are selling in New York, moving to Atlanta. Prices in Atlanta are going crazy. Prices in New York have kind of been diminishing in some of the parts. And so the question is, okay, how quickly can you sell that house so that you don't end up
Right.
paying more in an Atlanta market where everything is so hot right now? And so 1031s are great if they fit the specific need for the client, or if the
Right.
client really just wants the slow and steady, easy, follow the traditional path, then yes, they're great. But for individuals that are dealing with, in some cases, multi-millions of dollars and transactions that are at least $1 or $2 million, it they have to ask themselves the question of, is the 1031 the best way to go? Or should they explore other options? And if they just go to someone that sells those other options, they're going to be sold into it. If they look at it from a strategic perspective and they analyze all of the channels and all of the opportunities that they have at their disposal, then they're going to end up coming up ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said there, like that, because I feel like a lot of people will they just automatically think like, oh, the 1031 is like the way to go. And it's like you said, it's great in the right like situations, but it's hard in this market where, it's you're selling high and then you're buying higher 180
Higher.
days later. Like,
I mean,
and
I love real estate, and a lot of people are like, you're a financial strategist and you love real estate. And I'm like, yes, I do, because it has a unique place, right, for so many
right,
clients. But even like if I was in the situation and was faced with needing to potentially sell a property and figure out what I do, I probably would not necessarily take on. For us, it would not, the 1031 would not make sense. Are there other cases where it does? Yes, there are. But again, you have to even on the real estate side, you need to know that you're working with someone that's in your corner versus someone that's truly playing to the fact that the market is hot. How do you minimize a lot of that, some of that heat, so that you can free up money and put it back into clients' pockets? And unfortunately, that's a discussion for another day, but it's another potential pitfall for clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like your business is really predicated on this idea of trust, like as the foundation. Like your clients need to trust that you guys have their best interest in mind.
Well, that's a great statement. And here's what I'll tell you, Piers. Oftentimes clients come to us and they'll say things such as, I trust my financial advisor, but I don't think that I have that necessarily that I understand what my options are. Or my financial person has done great for me, but there are specific questions. Or my financial person prints out, these are real cases, right? My financial advisor does great. Their presentations look beautiful, but they seem like they're cookie cutter, right? They took some of our information and the system spits it out and we see the same thing year over year and nothing really ever changes and it's the same strategies. So when they come to us, one of the first things that we tell them is we're not for everyone, and we're very selective with the clients that we work with. If their mindset isn't there, if they're not willing to think outside of the box, if they're not willing to frankly do the hard work, because we'll do the hard work for them, especially for our strategic super high net worth individuals, the team will do the hard work for them, but they still have to be involved as part of the decision making process. Because if somebody just tells you what to do, right, later on you're going to look back and you're going to say, I wish that I would have done things differently. We don't ever want clients to have regrets. And when they understand the place that we're acting from and how we go about doing business and making sure that they're in the right situation and they are in partnership with the right teams, they automatically know that we're different and they see the trust.
Yeah.
And of course, our prior clients speak very highly of the value that they've seen, and the fact that we always go above and beyond to make sure that they've always been in the best position possible. So that's kind of what our new clients are exposed to, and then very quickly they get to realize that yes, what they've heard is actually real.
Awesome. So is there like a specific you mentioned that you don't take every client. So is there like a specific set of criteria or something that you look for someone that you will take on as a client? That if or like a red flag that if you see, you're like, no, like
There are, and it's funny because in financial services, a lot of financial advisors will look at assets under management and how much money can really be invested. We don't operate from that perspective, again, because the client may or may not want to be in the market, or they may or may not want to invest the money that way. So a couple of the things that we look for, obviously we look for individuals that are either high net worth individuals or they are high income earners, right? If they're making $200,000 or higher, and they don't have that feeling that yes, their taxes are fully optimized, even if they're a W-2 employee.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Think of doctors, think of pharmacists, think of attorneys, think of anybody that may be on a W-2 or on payroll, and they're just paying in taxes because that's what they've always known. They have options, and oftentimes they don't know. So those are from a kind of financial perspective. We're not looking at how much money is there from an investment standpoint, but rather have they either built wealth or are they in a position where they can start really focusing on that? The other thing that we look for in clients is mindset. If a client comes to us and they tell us, well, this is great, but I already have the best team. I'm already optimized. I already pay at the least that I can in taxes. And I poke around and ask them a couple of questions, and it's very clear that they don't, but they just have this mentality that they kind of have it all buttoned down. I don't want to try to convince someone that of something that they've already convinced themselves. They might have convinced themselves that of something that's totally faulty. It's not my job to try to convince them otherwise. So we're looking for the individuals that are open-minded, they are willing to think outside of the box, they're willing to work with us, and that they're asking the question of what am I missing? They might already be in a wonderful position financially, but if they're asking themselves the question of what am I missing? What could I be doing better to build wealth? Those are the kinds of individuals that we will most likely end up working with.
I really like that. So one of the things that I, am capital gains tax deferral, is our kind of like bread and butter, right? We focus on the Deferred Sales Trust, not to be confused with Delaware Statutory Trust, but the Deferred Sales Trust. And I actually leveraged this down in Newport Beach, where I'm a luxury realtor, and so one of the challenges I find that I run into all the time is that I'm younger guy or whatever, right? And these guys have tens, 20, hundreds, millions of dollars, right? Like some punk coming up being like, hey man, I got something that's your team probably doesn't know about. Like, but they might, I don't know. But if they did, I'm sure you would have already like solved this problem by now. So, and they, it's hard for me to get them to sit down, to have a conversation, to listen, so I really like that mindset shift that you kind of just said. And maybe that's an approach that I'll take from now on. It's like, hey, like, I know you are all squared away, but maybe you're missing something that could make it just a little bit better.
Or have you asked yourself, what you potentially could be missing?
Yeah.
Because there's so many different strategies. Yeah, I love that. And I would definitely recommend that you take that approach. And if someone continues on with, I know it and I know it best, just let them continue on, because once you've planted that seed, what we're finding is that people come back and they'll say, hey, you said something.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? Right. And frankly, if they don't come back, that's their loss. I mean, I can't tell you how many potential clients I've spoken with in the past, and one in particular, husband and wife attorney team. Husband is a know-it-all. His spouse sends me clients all the time because she knows that we do things right. She knows that if we don't have the answers, we know the strategic partner that will have the answers, right? And so our clients are always in the best case possible. But she also knows, hey, I know you guys need help, but I'm not going to go head to head against your husband, who evidently knows it all, but you're not optimized, and you know it, you feel it, you're asking the right questions, but without the right mindset, I can't, and I won't, we won't, because this is not just our problem. Our job here is to help our clients make the best decisions with their money and have access to the right strategies, but not make it for them. That would not be fair to them and to the money that they've worked so hard for.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting to hear you just be like, we're willing to let them go. You're not desperate. You have something of extreme value to offer people that they are not getting. And so it's refreshing to hear, like, you're lost, moving on. And they'll come back. I like that. Plant the seed. They might come back, because
absolutely, the right ones will come back. The ones that are meant to receive the value will come back.
Yeah, absolutely. So your strategic partners alliances, how are you guys like all relatively vertically integrated, or do you just have like a team that you've built how are you actually structured?
We actually have a team of very close strategic partners that we've done our vetting. And for example, on the security side, I can't tell you how many financial advisors I've heard. I've been a fly on the wall. I've been in meetings. I've listened to their philosophies, their ways of doing business. And as you can probably tell, I don't work with people that are in a sales mode. I really don't. Or people that are just out to get the client into whatever product is top of mind, or top of mind for the company for that month or that quarter. And so, like, for example, on the security side, we have a very, very tight niche of individuals that we work with, a small team that has been very thoroughly vetted, that when we put in front of the client will say things such as, and this is real feedback that we're getting, Eunicia, I can't believe how amazing that call was. Like, we've had money in the market, but we never really understood that we have options. Even when it comes to that, right? We actually have options. And the fact that you and the team primarily, because they're talking about the specific strategies, that you were able to go into that level of detail and not feel like we're being sold something, that was huge. Because most financial advisors is, you're in half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, and you're out, and maybe you'll see them again next year. That's not how our strategic partners operate. And then when it comes to other types of strategic partners that are more diverse and in areas that are very highly specialized, even in those cases, generally we have a couple of references that clients can go to. So for example, CPA would be a great example, right? Depending on what the client's trying to achieve, we might say, hey, I would recommend, here are the 2 or 3 different CPAs that we work closely with. please go ahead and have a conversation with them. We'll let them interview those CPAs to make sure that they feel comfortable. Because
Right.
it's the same thing, right? We need to make sure that our clients don't feel like they're in a situation where they're just working with someone that's really good, but that they don't resonate with. And so our clients have options, and because they have options, again, there's trust there as well from that's built in automatically in the way that we work with them.
How do you limit the I don't want to say limit the options so that people don't get overwhelmed, but obviously like you can probably like as you're building this puzzle, right, of someone's financial picture, right? You can see, hey, look, like these are probably the best like couple. Um do you lay everything out there and just be like, here's absolutely every possible thing like we could do? Or do you like vet it a little bit and then offer them, hey, here's 3 things we think would be the best in this situation? How do you keep from overwhelming your clients?
That is such a great question. And I wish more people would ask it because frankly, that's where I think a lot of people run into the problems, right? It's either spending a little bit of time and giving it all to the client or saying here are the top 3 things, but the client doesn't understand the rest 6 that they have options to. And so what we do, we work on a consulting basis, right? So,
Mhm.
financial consulting basis. That's the reason why, one of the other reasons why we're so different, because when we work with the clients, what we understand from working with hundreds and hundreds of clients is that they will be overwhelmed. And if we just go in and we say, here are all of the different things that you can do, they're going to go, oh my God, you just blew
Right.
my mind. Just do it for me. But you
Right.
know that we're not in the business of just doing it for clients, right? Because that's going to cost them money. It doesn't matter who it is that does it for them. It's kind of like the analogy when people say, I just want it done for me. What I turn around and will tell them is, okay, what sport are you interested in? Okay, you're an NBA kind of person. Wonderful. If this was the playoffs and you're so passionate about those playoffs, are you going to respectfully ask your best friend to watch the game for you and then relay it to you to the best of their ability so
Yeah.
that you can relive it somehow? Well, of
Yep.
course I wouldn't do that. Well, then why would you put the money that you've worked so hard for and just trust that somebody else is going to enjoy that game just the same way that you would?
Yep.
And they go, oh my God. So, coming back to your question, the way that we approach the situation is first and foremost, we really dive deep in understanding what is the client trying to achieve? Is this truly on a personal side? Or if they're a business owner, are they looking to potentially say divest of the business in the next 2 to 5 years? Okay. Based on all of that, then we start figuring out, okay, what are the things that really we need to focus on first? Because it's a domino effect, right? And then we identify what is the first number one, number 2 pieces of the domino that need to shift. And only after that do we start saying, okay, now we need to focus on whatever else needs to be done. But we try to truncate it into categories. Are we working on liquidity? Are we working on taxes? Are we working on estate planning? Like what is the specific biggest category that we're working on right now? Then we dovetail into that and then we sequence everything else. And the shortest amount of time that we work with our clients is 6 months. Typically, we're working with our clients anywhere between 6 months to a year. And most of our clients, especially the business owners, we have agreements where they want us to continue on a retaining basis with them because they see the value. I mean, we're talking about, in many cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars to their bottom line because they didn't know that they have options that perhaps were not discussed with them or shared with them in the past. And so we take a very, very strategic approach to do just that, to not overwhelm our clients and to make sure that they can actually sleep at night.
Awesome. So it sounds like you guys as financial leadership consultants, you are basically taking the reins and saying, okay, here's from what you've told us, here's the best ways to go about this and breaking it down into each individual category and then saying, okay, based upon your goals and what we're focusing on in this particular like thing, here's the options. And you're not even talking about the rest of the stuff right there. We're getting really narrowed in and focused on that. And then once they've kind of done that, then you build onto the next plan. Is that kind of how it would work?
In a generalized way, yes, because otherwise, if we end up doing everything all at once, the client's going to get overwhelmed.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of chaos happening, right? And so, if we take it in strides, it gives the client a sense of not only security because we're addressing the biggest pain points first, biggest pain points, lowest hanging fruit, whatever it may be, depending on some of those initial preliminary strategy discussions. And then once those happen, then we kind of continue to follow the domino effect. I just before our call, I sent an email out to a client where we're working, kind of have the broader strategy, and we know that the first domino was X. We already addressed X. Now we're focused on Y, and Y is a big hairy dog with or I guess an octopus with multiple heads,
Of
right?
course.
And so as those heads are peeking up, how do you address them? Even there, a lot of people would go, "Oh my God, but if we have to, like so many decisions." It's not that complicated. Let's break it down to figure out, okay, for this, what's the decision that's required? Let's work on that. Then what's the next decision that's needed? The next decision. And so the client never feels like, how am I going to get this done? Because they know that there's someone quarterbacking the
Right.
entire process and the ball will not get dropped because of that,
So you guys basically act as the quarterback,
pretty much.
or are you guys playing as the like offensive coordinator where you're lining everything out and making the calls like, hey, this is what you should do now, or here's three options, do one of these, and then moving on from there.
It's a little bit of both, but it's really more of the quarterback. How do we keep everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing so that no balls get dropped? And oftentimes clients will. This is funny, but we've heard from multiple clients saying, "Eunicia, what you guys do, it's like herding cats." And I loved it the first time I heard it because it's so true. And then the question was, well, how do you do it? And my answer is, it's simple. I honestly, we could as a team not do what we do if that strategic consulting experience was in my background because that's basically what it is. It's herding cats every single
Yeah.
day, and sometimes cats from different companies, all within the same day, and trying to make sure that none of them get lost. It's the same thing with our clients' financial situation and making sure that everybody on the extended financial team is doing what they're supposed to be doing. So we're very well positioned because of the expertise that we have that doesn't just look at, okay, how does financial services as an industry work? But rather to say, okay, we understand how it works, but what are the pitfalls? What are the blind spots? And how do we avoid those? And that's what we focus on.
Awesome. Well, I see over here you got empoweredfinancialplanner.com/pitfalls. What is on that page?
It's five biggest pitfalls that regardless of whether or not somebody's making $250,000 or 50 million, there's some of the strategies, some of the pitfalls that we've seen over and over clients falling trapped to, and because of that they end up leaving money to chance. And so I'd welcome our listeners to go check it out. It's a very short read, but it's really more focused on how do we change the way that we think about things so
Mhm.
that we can actually ask the right questions. And really the bottom line question, what are we missing? What am I
Yeah,
missing as a high income or a high net worth individual? And what are the things that we need to work on? And then we can start working together and addressing them. But I would strongly encourage our listeners to go check it out.
absolutely. I'm gonna go check it out actually right after this and go read that because this has been an amazing interview. So I'm very grateful that you came on and have shared just some immense knowledge on us. And I love your approach, love your mindset, um, just love your coachability and your coaching ability, and just it's been great. So I know we're kind of running out of time here, and you're very busy, so we got to get you kind of out of here. But I did want to ask, just get really quickly into the lightning round. And before I do, how can people get a hold of you, get in touch with you?
Absolutely. That's a great question. First and foremost, when they go check out the pitfalls, there will be a question there. How did you hear about us? Make sure they mention the name of the show here. And second of all, you can go to our website, empoweredfinancialplanner.com. You can also look us up on LinkedIn under Eunicia Peret. You can also go under empoweredfinancialplanner.com. We have a page, or on social media, Facebook, Empowered Financial Planner page, as well as on Instagram under Eunicia Peret. So we are pretty much everywhere. You can also interact with us on our website. If you want to to just message us there. And we look forward to being in touch with you and addressing questions that you might have about your specific situation on what else you could be doing better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So, really quick, the lightning round. I'm really curious about this. What is your favorite leadership quote?
My favorite leadership quote. Oh, goodness gracious. I don't know that I could rattle off a favorite leadership quote specifically, but I would tell you my own, I guess, kind of quote. I'm sure I've heard
Yeah,
it
what's your quote?
somewhere is, um, if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. If you can't crawl, just make a move. Every single day, do something. Whether it's for your business, whether it's on a personal note, when you have that list of big to-dos that need to get done, and oftentimes you just either want to procrastinate or it feels like it's too big to take on, just do something every day to make progress. And if you do that, you're going to feel better. The problem is going to start subsiding and going away because frankly you're going to be addressing it one bite at a
Right.
time, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a
One
time
at a
kind of
time.
thing. It's the same thing. So that's one of my favorite things that I tell clients, I tell my team, I tell people that come to me and they're like, but I'm dealing with so much. It's like, just have you done something to move the needle today, as small as it might be? Well, what does that mean? And that's where I kind of share that with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Okay. What is your favorite book?
One of my favorite books from a financial perspective that's fairly easy to read, but it also is fairly comprehensive, is Tony Robbins's Money Master the Game book. I think it gives people an understanding about. It's fairly high level, right? So a lot of
Yeah.
our listeners, it may not necessarily apply to them holistically because they're going to be dealing with some very outside of the box strategies. But I think it's a pretty universal book that has opened the minds of so many individuals about things that they didn't even know existed.
Awesome. And what are you most curious about right now?
Most curious is to figure out what's going to happen with this whole crypto situation and how it's going to integrate more so. Truly, I think long term from a financial perspective, right? We know that it's either an investment or a quote unquote virtual currency, but there's so much more to it. It has a lot of ramifications in terms of the way daily life is being lived. And that's not actually an answer that I've heard from any of the experts. As a matter of fact, I've spoken with a lot of crypto experts and nobody can articulate it outside of it. Either they really like it, they don't, or they think it's a great way to speculate the market and see what happens. So I'm looking for that thought leadership and I'm very interested to see where this is going to lead long term.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast episode in itself, diving into the realm of the crypto. And we'll get you back on here to dive into that if you've interviewed that many experts. But I know that we got to get you out of here. So thanks again so much for your time. And if you guys want to get in touch with Eunicia, just go to her website, empoweredfinancialplanner.com. And check out the pitfalls over there. I'm going to go read it. It's going to be awesome. And if you guys are interested in, we touched on it a little bit, but the Deferred Sales Trust, which is an amazing tool, you can find out more about that at capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We also have a mastermind every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern. Come ask questions, learn about us, learn about our strategic partners as well. And Eunicia, I'm going to send you an invite so you can come and check that out and be on there so you guys can connect with her there as well. So thank you again so much. And one last time, if you guys are interested, empoweredfinancialplanner.com/pitfalls. Go check it out. It's going to be awesome. Eunicia, any parting words?
No, thanks for having me here today, Pierce. It was a pleasure. Looking forward to hearing from some of our listeners and figuring out how we can continue to change the paradigm when it comes to wealth optimization.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks again, everybody, for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy is the best way to preserve and grow your wealth. Please rate, review, and subscribe. And thank you again for listening, guys. We'll